Here's the truth. Momentum isn't magic. It's created. And once it starts, it can take your salon further in 3 months than most do in 3 years. But what kills momentum? It's a team that checks out. It's a leader who hits decision fatigue, a brand that blends in. It's a business that can't handle pressure. So, what creates momentum? It's irresistible experiences, culture that multiplies. It's systems that get better under stress, and clear, powerful communication. These 5 books I have right here have helped billion-dollar companies and elite creative teams do exactly that. And they can do the same for your salon. But don't skip ahead on this video because book number 3, it uncovers the number one silent killer of team culture and how to stop it before it spreads. This isn't fluff. This is salon ownership redefined through 5 books that could change everything. So let's go build your momentum. So the first book I don't even have with me, but it's called The Psychology of Winning. It's by Dr. Dennis Winners. Dr. Dennis, let me think. Dr. Dennis Waitley. Sorry, Dr. Dennis Waitley. And what Dr. Dennis says is that winners dwell on the rewards of success, not the penalties of failure. Salon owner, your team can't rise higher than your internal thermostat. This book changes how you show up mentally in the hardest seasons. I remember a key lesson in the book. It was the difference between a winner and a whiner. And he says that a difference between a winner and a whiner isn't talent, it's perspective under pressure. If you go back, if you were a salon owner during COVID, when everything was shut down, it was so easy to panic, to become stressed. But during that time, I reread this book. And the one concept that stood out is that winners are solution oriented. You see, that mindset helped me pivot fast, launching virtual consultation, retail dropships, and a training series that actually made our team better during lockdown. So this book didn't just teach motivation, it programs resilience. And I'll show you how this mindset connects to book number 4, where chaos actually becomes a growth strategy. One of the foundations of the key principles to the book was to think about positive self-control. Positive self-control. It was really, really good. He said in this book that winners take 100% responsibility, no excuses. So it got me thinking, what's an example of this in the salon? It'd be like a stylist or service provider is underperforming. A loser mindset, almost that winner mindset, says they're just lazy. I don't know what's going on with them. They're just lazy. They can't do it. But a winner mindset asks, how can I coach them better? Did I miss something? This shift brings solutions, not blame. One of my other favorite parts about the book, he talks about the law of assumption. And this one is really good. It's the law of assumption. And if you walk into your salon every morning waiting for someone to screw up, you'll find it. But if you walk in expecting brilliance, you'll start seeing that too. I feel like this was a salon owner golden nugget. He said, success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. So are you being the kind of leader your dream team will want to follow? So that was from the book, The Psychology of Winning. So the second book, I actually have it with me. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. The author is Will Jadara. And, this is a really great book. And one thing he says in this book is service is black and white, but hospitality is color. So this book will literally wake you up. So if you want clients for life, man, I feel like this is your new Bible. One of the key chapters in here is called The Extraordinary Power of Intention. where he tells the story. I think it's he tells the story about a restaurant overheard a table joking about the love for hot dogs, a fine dining restaurant. So his team actually leaves the restaurant, bought the best hot dog in New York, plated it beautifully, and delivered it to the table. That's the power of intention. You're like, okay, well, what's a salon version of this, Jen? So, once upon a time, we had a client that was having a birthday, and one of our stylists heard her mention it was her birthday, and also her birthday popped up on our salon software. And at her visit, we made her a birthday card and a little gift. I mean, when she was checking out, I started to notice tears streaming down her face. And she said, we were the only people who had given her a birthday card this year. And so that's the power of unreasonable hospitality. Just like the hot dog and the birthday card, man, that's what we're in the business of, making people feel special. And so we're going to circle back to this idea of team awareness and trust. Because if you're the only one noticing these kinds of things or these opportunities like in this book, you'll burn out. And that's where book number 3 delivers our hard truth. And it's, let me pick it up. It fell for me. So this book is called Loyalty and Disloyalty by Dag Mills. Man, this is a good book, salon owners. What he talks about in this book is disloyalty begins in the shadows of the mind long before it surfaces in actions. So let's talk about the thing no one wants to talk about out loud. I believe that one of your biggest threats isn't the lack of clients. It's the disunity inside your team. And so one of my favorite chapters is when he talks about the six stages of disloyalty. And you probably can relate to this, or you've seen this happen before. And he talks about the first stage of disloyalty is like the person on your team is thinking, I know better. Like, I can do this better. I think I can do this without Jen. And then he goes on to say the next stage is that person starts to not feel seen. They may be saying things like, I do all of this with no appreciation. I clean the most. I work the hardest. So you'll start to hear or feel that kind of energy. The third stage is that they disengage. Like they have excuses why they can't come to meetings or education events. You're like, oh yeah, that wasn't blocked out on my schedule. Somebody must have taken it off. I didn't know we had a salon education event then. And so the fourth stage is actually where they start whispering. They start asking others, like, are you really happy here? Like, did you like that salon meeting, or were you just as bored as I was? What did you really think about it? That's what they'll say. And he talks about the fifth stage is us versus them. Like they literally look for everything to be and go wrong. They will complain about the smallest little thing. And then the sixth stage is they actually leave and they try to take people with them. We've all had this. I've had a stylist that I loved. I poured into her, gave her extra education, extra one-on-ones, promoted her before she was ready, and she still left. And worse, you try to pull others with her. And when I read this book, I realized I saw the early signs. I just didn't know what they meant. The most interesting part about this book is this book was actually shared with me with one of my employees. And she said, Jen, she came to me one day and she said, Jen, I now know why you release people when you find out they're moving on. She said, it never made sense to me before this book. But this book taught me a new perspective. And I thought, oh my gosh, if it taught her that, it's going to give me the words to help even more people understand why we release people if they're moving on. Because this book taught me how to leave with firm love, how to address loyalty before it becomes disloyalty, and how to create team agreements that protect the culture. And you're going to see how this connects to book number 5, because the way you communicate expectations might be the real problem. And so another book, I don't have this one on me, but it's called Anti-Fragile. And it's by Nicholas Taleb, Taleb. Yep. And he shares a really interesting quote in here. And he says, wind, what is it? That wind, oh, my camera stopped there. Wind extinguishes a candle, but fuels a fire. You know, this book is dense, but it's so gold. You know, what we know is that fragile systems break under pressure. Robust systems survive. The anti-fragile systems actually get stronger because of stress. You know, and the lesson from the book was, you know, don't just build a business that works when life is good. Build one, you know, that thrives when tested. And so let me show you something real quick. So let's think about this. So an example would be, so let's say this is growth, and this is time. So we have growth and time. Another way so you guys can see it. Growth and time. Now, what he says in this book is when you're going along in business, right? And then stress hits your business. So let's say this is the stressor. So this is the stress. You know, it could be that a stylist or service provider leaves, a recession hits, your bookings drop off, you see more white space. And he says, in this moment, you have 3 choices. You know, if you're fragile, you actually break. So you go down. So this is if you're fragile. But if you're robust, you keep going, but nothing really changes. So you stay the same. Think about like a robot, keep going, right? But if you're anti-fragile, you actually get stronger because of the pressure. So anti-fragile, you actually get stronger. Isn't that so interesting? You see, most salons are trying to get by. The great ones, they're built to grow stronger through chaos. Like, you don't become anti-fragile by avoiding stress. You become anti-fragile by designing yourself to benefit from it. You know, it's not about being tough either. I want to make sure that's clear. It's not about being tough. You know, it's about using like pressure, mistakes, chaos, and randomness as fuel to grow you stronger. You know, if we look at this a little bit deeper, it's like, let's say we have 2 circles here. So we have our 2 circles. 2 circles. All those are really good circles, aren't they? And let's say this is going to be more of a fragile salon. And this is going to be our anti-fragile. An anti-fragile salon. And, you know, what they say is like some examples would be a fragile salon would be like panic when stylists quit. So panic when stylists quit, but an anti-fragile salon would actually grow after that setback. You had a salon that lost 7 team members in 4 months and is actually doing way more than she even did before. I mean, in some cases, that would wipe a team out, right? And then let's say, you know, maybe there's struggle during slow months. That's what a fragile salon would do. But an anti-fragile salon would actually create opportunities, you know, during the slow month. Another one would be, you know, maybe there's no backup plan. Maybe there's no black backup plan when a problem hits. But that would be a fragile salon, but an anti-fragile salon would actually adapt systems. So it's really, just a beautiful opportunity. Like, think about it. Do you want to be more of a fragile salon or an anti-fragile salon? Fragile actually means broken. The actual definition of fragile is broken. Anti means like against being broken. And so, the beautiful part about this is that you can't do all of that without powerful communication. And that's going to bring us to the book that upgraded every conversation I have. And that book is called Super Communicators, and it's by Charles Duhigg. And then one thing Charles says in this book is that connection doesn't come from saying the right thing. It comes from saying the right thing the right way. Every salon owner has had this moment. You pour your heart out in a meeting and the team just stares at you, right? Or worse, they twist what you said. And in this book, he teaches there are 3 types of conversations. And so those 3 types of conversations are practical. This is going to be more facts and logic. Emotional. So this is going to be more how we feel. Social. So this is where we stand in the group. So practical, emotional, or social. And he says that great leaders know what kind of conversation they're in. Let's say you've had a stylist not meeting her, let's say, retail goals. Maybe you kept giving her numbers and scripts. Nothing worked. And so then you decided to switch it up. And you say, hey, when clients don't take what they need home, how does that make you feel? And let's say she said, I feel like I'm really letting them down. That changes everything, because we were in that moment, we were in an emotional conversation, not a practical one where we were trying to give her scripts. We really needed to draw that emotion out. We know that emotion puts things in motion. Practical, which is more of a logic part of it, is logic makes things more lethargic. And so this book will help you retain more team members, resolve more tension, and build a team that trusts your words. So these 5 books, I got 2 on me, give you some insights on rebuilding from, team turnover, creating a culture like guests rave about, and building systems that get stronger under pressure. So leave a comment with the book that stood out the most, or once you're added to the list, or one that you're going to add to your list, because salon success isn't about more hustle. It's about being aligned and being backed by unstoppable systems. I'll see you on the next video.